So in this segment, we're going to be talking about this story here, which it shouldn't be funny, but it is. It is. I'll explain why. So, 10-year jail term for travel lies defended. So basically, if you lie about your travel history, say you come from a red zone country, and then you go through transit, say you go through Germany into the UK, and you say no, I haven't been to a red list country, you could face a maximum jail time of 10 years. And so this is, you can argue that this is the right punishment and stuff like that, or it's excessive, but some of the takes I've seen from this are just phenomenal. So, maximum 10-year jail time for lying about recent travel history has been defended by the government. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said the British public would expect pretty strong action, and the maximum sentence reflects the seriousness of the crime. It was criticised by former Supreme Court Judge Lord Sumption. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Who said lower tariffs exist for sex offences, so you could get punished more if you lie about your travel history than if you committed, a heinous act. From Monday, people arriving in England from red list countries must isolate for 10 days in hotels, costing £1,750, which is an outrage because it shouldn't cost anywhere near that amount. It follows concerns that existing vaccines being rolled out in the UK may struggle to control new virus strains identified around the world. Meanwhile, Mr. Shapps said people should not be looking for holidays, blah, blah, blah. And so, Prime Minister's questions, he said the hotel quarantine plan was measured and proportionate. I think the price is way too high. Lord Sumption accused Health Secretary Matt Hancock, who announced the latest measures, of losing connection with reality. 10 years is the maximum sentence for threats to kill, non-fatal poisoning, or indecent assault, he wrote. Does Matt Hancock really think that a non-disclosure of a visit to Portugal is worse than the large number of violent firearms offences or sexual offences involving minors, for which the maximum sentence is 7 years? So you can see here that, this lord here, or judge, sorry, has said that, you're saying that it's 10 years if you lie about coming from a red zone country, so you avoid paying, £1,750 and a 10-day mandatory quarantine in a quarantine facility. But you're saying that's worse than, using a firearm and stuff like that, and he's got a valid point here. Former Tory MP and ex-Attorney General Dominic Grieve said the 10-year penalty was a mistake, exaggerated and entirely disproportionate. He told BBC Radio 4's Today programme the reality is that nobody would get such a sentence anyways. The courts are simply not going to impose it. Now, I recognise that the government has to put strict rules and needs to have penalties to enforce them, but suggests that a 10-year sentence is going to result from a false declaration on a form on landing at Heathrow Airport is, I think, a massive mistake, because it is exaggerated and not going to happen, and that's the whole point. They're saying that, this government saying that we're taking a tough stance on these things. You could get a 10-year prison stretch if you lie about coming from a red list country, and you're like, bro, this is never going to happen. Failing to quarantine in a designated hotel after arriving from a red list country will carry a fine of between £5,000 and £10,000. And given that it's almost £2,000 to stay in one of these hotels, I think a lot of people are going to chance it. The 10-year jail term would be a maximum penalty. New border measures also require international arrivals to pay for additional tests during their quarantine period. Asked about the harsh penalties, Mr. Shapps told BBC Breakfast that those who are fined as much as 10k would have to go out of their way to lie and cheat the new system. Mr. Shapps said the 10-year maximum jail time reflected the serious nature of the offence. I think the British public would expect pretty strong action, and this is basically the government going to say, when they have to defend their policies and their record, they say, we said you got 10 years if you break, if you lie about being from a red list zone or break quarantine rules and all this stuff. That's why they've done this, because the British public eat this stuff up. International travel is currently banned other than for a small number of permitted reasons, including essential work, medical appointments and education. Holidays are not allowed. Shapps confirmed ministers were speaking to other governments about a potential international system to check whether travellers had been vaccinated or tested for coronavirus. I mean, it's taken you nearly a year to come up with this, but whatever. For the most part, I agree that, they need to take a tough stance, but I think that 10-year stretch is way too long. I think the courts won't impose it. Just do fines, impose mandatory fines, and if the person does have COVID and doesn't quarantine or whatever, then they should face massive punishments. I think this is excessive and it won't work, and our justice system is already struggling. This is from the Secret Barrister. It will take a year to investigate you, another 6 months until your first court appearance, another 18 months until your first Crown Court trial, another 12 months when that trial is adjourned, and if you're found guilty, you're not going to get 10 years in prison. So this is the government talking tough here. Once again, in a surprise to absolutely nobody, this is, the government at its finest. So Do I agree with the 10-year stretch? No. Do I think it should be huge fines? Yes. And I think one way to circumvent the so people actually do go to these mandatory quarantine facilities is not have the cost at £1,700, because that's more expensive than a holiday. Like, that's way more expensive than a holiday in, like, one of the kind of cheaper European destinations. So I don't understand how it's going to cost that much to stay in a quarantine facility. I don't know how much Australia and New Zealand charge, but I'd be surprised if it was that much. But then again, some of them are getting put in 5-star hotels, so who knows. But anyways, I've got nothing more to say apart from the fact that the government talking tough, and they know the courts aren't going to enforce this. They know it. So this is a moot point really from Grant Shappy Shaps. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.